am live from the Scheinfeld Center Innovator Studio from Santa Barbara City College. It's the Enlightened Entrepreneur Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here to build livelihoods that matter and be your own boss. We often hear the advice to follow our passion when it comes to designing our career, whether that's being an entrepreneur or working as an employee. Is this just cliche, or is there something really to this? Joining us from Cape Town, South Africa, is career strategist and entrepreneur Licia Dewing. Since 2013, Licia has helped established and emerging leaders from across the globe find their calling and revolutionize their career toward greater purpose, passion, and meaning. She created her proprietary career strategy formula after discovering the need to boost her own career passion after serving 18 years as a recruiter within multinational organizations and entrepreneurial startups across Southern Africa and Europe. Licia, welcome to the podcast, and thank you for joining us, especially all the way from Cape Town, where it's somewhere around midnight right now.
Julie, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much. It's super great to engage with you and your community.
So let's start from the top. When we talk about careers, are we just focused on jobs, or is being an entrepreneur, is that also considered a career? What's a good working definition of career?
You know, I use the expression in my work that we own our career and the company owns the job. So with that as the sort of the base definition, a career really is the project of your work, be that freelance, contract, permanent, entrepreneurial, consulting. It might include postgraduate studies, short courses. So a career is everything that you're doing towards the work of your life, the working world. Job then would be a certain aspect of that career.
Okay, great. So, in June 2021, you tweeted that passion and career should be combined and that we should do everything we can to keep them together. Let's unpack that. So to start with, how do you define passion as it relates to career?
You know, Julie, it's interesting in reflection of being here and speaking to your students. The concept of an entrepreneur, I think, is a great example of a career and passion, or passion within a career, because an entrepreneur is seen a problem, working towards a solution, and they're really putting time, effort, and energy to unlock something in the world. So I like that definition, but then that perhaps would be a bit narrow, because of course, working within the corporate sector or across any other field of, our careers, one could develop passion and have passion. So for me, the real definition is about being enthusiastically able and capable for the task at hand. In other words, the meeting place between your skills and your talent and the market need and solutions that are required. It's this beautiful mix and combination uniquely within all of us. I come from the thought leadership that we all have this blueprint within us that is unique, and we're able to find it, discover it. Our job is to find it and then really just shine it in the world. That's the thing called passion. It's this unique thread that runs through us all.
When we find this and connect with it, what is the benefit? Like, what is the outcome that we experience, when we connect that with our career?
The outcome really is that sense of working on purpose. It's that feeling that you get when you don't have to be reminded to do something. It just naturally flows from you. You step into it. You're enthusiastic, you want to do it. It calls you, whether whether it's late at night, whether it's early in the morning, whether it's the most inconvenient time. You're so fully engaged within that thing that's drawing on your passion. So it's that quintessential energy and that buzz that you get from doing something. And imagine an environment where we're all able to simply just enjoy the work that we're doing. The work feels like it's coming, it's a work and flow, and we're just engaged with it, versus dialing up into our energy to get it done, really having to manufacture the requirements to do what it is that we have to do, rather than it just naturally coming from us. So I hope I'm describing it correctly, but it's that thing that we can really tangibly connect to, that when we don't have it, we all can understand what it means to be without passion in an environment. And when we're in it, it just simply, things flow, and we can lose track of time and get so absorbed in what we're doing that we forget to take a break. What time's lunch? We're just completely absorbed in it.
It's surprising how elusive this whole thing about connecting with passion and connecting career with passion can be. What's the primary thing that makes identifying our passion as it relates to our career so challenging?
I believe that really comes down to the fact that it's so unique to us all. It really is, unique as the fingerprints that we have. It's not something that can be defined. It's not a one size fits all. And the other element is that one discovers it through trial and error. It's not about, well, I just know it. I'm really going to get that clarity of knowing what it is that I'm passionate about by engaging with the world, by being, bringing my energy and experiencing and being open to whatever it is that I can turn my hand to within, the internship, within my studies, within early stages of our career, and as we continue to grow. So it's a combination of it being so completely unique that how could we replicate it? One size doesn't fit all. And then it's about that trial and error element. Trial being, we have to turn our hands to it. I use the example, how would you know that you're passionate about opera singing unless you have ever been to the opera? How would you know that you're passionate about ice skating from a hobbyist perspective unless you've ever gone out on the ice? So in order to find that passion, we really need to go out and get active and do many things to find see what comes across our path that we're able to engage with. And then the error part of the trial and error of discovering it is that we might need to use the analogy of kissing a couple of frogs along the way. We might find, well, I really don't like this thing called opera, or I'm really not interested in this type of task or project related work, simply because the clarity comes from engagement. We're not going to think about our passion. We're going to feel it. It's an energetic sense. It's a whole body kind of experience. I also use the expression source work. Now, source work is the stuff that comes from within you that you really enjoy doing. You can watch people who are passionate about their job, and it's so evident for anybody to see and observe somebody involved within their source work that they really are, fully immersed and working within their passion. So it's this trial and error uniqueness that makes it hard to understand. And then, of course, there's the element of the word passion being slightly overtraded. I think organizational development have kind of used it. You'll see it pop up in job descriptions, a passion for sales or a passion for numbers, or you'll see it pop up in training material. And it's really perhaps that should read an enthusiasm rather than passion itself.
You have lived and worked globally. Do you find these challenges with identifying passion and connecting passion with career? Does that happen globally within different cultures from your experience?
So, Julie, I think that the passion is the energy that in a way connects us to our humanity. You look across the history of the world and we've all seen, and most recently, how passionate certain nations can be for concepts and ideas and identity. Whether that be within a geopolitical framework or not. So does it is our humanity is connected on a level of passion. So in my experience of working throughout the world, I've seen it with everyone. It's something that really comes up to everyone. What I would love to see, and for it to be, a conversation that's normalized, is within primary education, primary and secondary education, that we're able to bring this language into how we're bringing children into the world. And I mean, organizations like the Scheinfeld Center and the great work that you're doing within entrepreneurship and tertiary education in itself really starts to create an awareness and a sense that the younger generations should perhaps be encouraged to identify what it is that they enjoy doing and look towards forming careers around that, rather than the messaging that our generation and generations before us got, which was get a good qualification, work hard, find a good company, and the company will look after you, which really is a defaulted message. And that doesn't serve us anymore. The world of work has shifted and changed so drastically and will continue to shift and change as we continue to see the future of careers evolve in front of our eyes. So how to galvanize yourself against this? Well, figure out what it is. Our job is to figure out what we love, what we enjoy doing, and upskill ourselves in that, and really look for opportunities to explore that. Look for opportunities to stand out and explore the very things that we think we would enjoy doing. Because if we can explore it and find it, then there really is the meeting point of that realization, that self-actualization.
Yeah. Excellent. So that leads in really nicely to this process, this trial and error process. You've written about this, as a method to identify your passion. So could you walk us through that?
Absolutely. So I think it starts with really asking yourself a question around what are the things that call to me that I want to try and fix? What are the problems in the world? Perhaps that's too big an arena. What are the problems I see within my community, within my school, what are the problems around me that I'd like to fix and solve? And following from there, just going out and experimenting with that. So trying, offering yourself to projects and opportunities to really try and fix and solve those problems. And in the process, seeing what work evolves and what work develops. So it starts with questioning yourself, and what is it that I could change tomorrow to make the world a better place, or my organization, or my school, or my community, or my neighborhood? And let me go and see if I can do something. What could I do? How could I do that? And then suddenly that kind of activity, that action and motion gets us into the engagement side of things, or the trial and error side of things. So whether it's about making a clear list about these are the things that I could try and try and change for the better, and then really going out and doing it. And that's kind of the trial and error process that I advise, to take people through the sometimes stagnation of, but how do I know if I'm going to like it? Or how do I know if this is my passion? Well, my feeling is if you're asking that question, it's probably not. Because you'll know it, because you'll just be so engaged by it. I mean, if we talk about what passion is not, and the opposite of passion would be boredom. The opposite of passion would be anything that doesn't engage you, doesn't hold your curiosity, and doesn't call to you to want for you to kind of tinker with. So if you're bored with a book, a space, an environment, a project, a lecture, then you're not really going to want to engage with it. You're not going to want to probe. You're not going to ask questions. You're not going to do the extra reading. But if you're curious or engaged with something, you're going to want to go deeper. You're going to want to explore it and unpack it. And therein lies that trial and error process of going into finding something. I mean, I can use the analogy of a client of mine who we did amazing work. He was a banker and he had a great career within the banking world, yet he was really interested in helping people consider, be financially better at their investments and managing their money and so forth. And it kind of verged on the edge of sort of consulting and coaching, but he didn't see how he could shift from banking into that field. Yet he just continued to want to read about investment management and advice and financial literacy and how to save, and protect your money and so forth. And that led him into a completely different trajectory within his career. And was he bored with banking? Well, banking was his job and he enjoyed it and he was skilled, but he did need to manufacture and dial up on his energy. What he never needed to manufacture and dial into energy-wise was anything that was about financial literacy and investment management and managing funds, in a better sense. And so that was where he was able to start to see how his role and his job really didn't fuel his passion, and yet this passion continued to develop and grow. So he ended up creating a space and a place where he could engage with people and equip them with better financial literacy. And it manifested in a place where he could advise people who wouldn't normally have access to that kind of, banking and investment management world. So I like that analogy and that example because it gives us a palpable sense of we could spend a lot of time in a job that is completely devoid of passion. And there is no judgment here, whether that's good or bad, whether that's right or wrong. It simply just is. But while we continue to explore our curiosity and look at the things that we're good at and look at the things that really draw on our natural talents, therein will lie the very things that could be the seed of our passion. So the thing that also fascinates me about passion is that it's not necessarily something that's there when you start working. It might develop over time. Is it age? Is it something that shows up at a certain age? Do you qualify and then go, right, well, now my passion can come to the fore while I start to develop my career? No, it really starts to come with that open, curious mind, willing to push yourself beyond your comfort zones and just experiment with life and engage with things, engage with curiosity and perhaps solve the problems, answer, the question of what problems need solving, what things can you fix, how can you make a better world tomorrow? Therein is going to lie some opportunity for you to discover your passion.
So exciting. Now, we have some people from the audience who have some questions. So let's turn to those. How do you balance passion and doing what you love with the reality of making a living?
Well, I honor and respect the reality of making a living. And it's wonderful to talk about passion, but at the same time, we all have these realities that we need to face. And I would say that it's about looking at ways that you can still allow this curious passion and engagement with whatever it is that you enjoy to play out. So perhaps there's elements of bringing that into the work that you're doing. And if it's a complete yin and yang, and there isn't a way of doing that, then it's really just about continuing to fuel that passion in whatever form it might show up, whether that's in extra courses, whether that's in hobbies, whether that's an interest outside of work. But I would like to say that oil and water needs to somehow combine. So in other words, if you're going to, I don't believe that we need to settle for work that will never call on our passions. Somewhere within that environment, we will get to show up, because if passion is the thing that simply we can't switch off, it's unique to us all, and it's such a central force that will drive us forward. Imagine how that would ultimately with curiosity and perhaps a bit of courage, be brought into that reality of the job. So, working in the hospitality industry might be a job for somebody who perhaps has passions that doesn't coincide with that at all, but there could be potentially a way of combining them. So I suppose what my long answer is, look carefully at where you can connect the dots and the threads, and perhaps there is a way. And if you allow it to reveal itself to you, you might be able to discover that.
Well, that's kind of interesting. We've been talking about the entrepreneurial mindset. And so really what this is doing is bringing the entrepreneurial mindset to solving, how do I make sure that I have this element of passion in what I'm doing, making sure that that's being nourished. That's the entrepreneurial mindset, finding a problem, discovering the opportunity, creating products and services. If we're talking about making a living, this is one of the benefits that entrepreneurship brings to the table, especially in this day and age where entrepreneurship has been so democratized with so many different ways of creating a livelihood with it, and the access to platforms and resources that enable people to do that. So that's great. Let's take another question. This one is, when your interest is a general topic, how do you recommend zoning in?
Zoning in to find the source work. So the recommendation is, the awareness of knowing that you need to zone in is 50% of solving the problem. So the question that the individual posed is almost being answered by them saying, how do you zone in? Well, time, effort, energy, and perhaps a lot of focus, and considering avenues that you could zone in. So passion doesn't necessarily have to come from a niche. And I think in the entrepreneurial space and field, and certainly within the consulting and professional services industry, we really are advised to niche down, because we need to find, our ideal client and answer a particular question or solve a particular answer. But in a corporate environment where you're able to be in a generalist, role and carousel across different silos within a corporate industry, that in itself, that multifacetedness of not necessarily being a specialist, but being a generalist, may in fact feed the passion of gaining new knowledge and information and growth along the way. So I hope I'm trying to be specific to a challenging question, but I think the answer is within the question itself. How do you narrow down to find the thing that you might be passionate about? Well, you really just have to explore all the avenues that could take you to narrow down. So try your hand at projects that get you to do something more specific, as well as trying your hand at different areas of the role of the business that you could potentially explore. So anyone starting out in their career, if in the first few days, the first few years of your career, experience everything, whether it's the organization or the business. And from an entrepreneurial perspective, that's really what an entrepreneur does, is we get to be the master of all, because we don't necessarily have a team to run it for us from the start. So it's about experiencing everything. And from that action and that experience, there'll be some clarity or something that really continues to call to you.
Beautiful. I think we've got time for one more question, Licia. Let's see. In your early years, what are some of the frogs you kissed, and how did it influence where you ended up today?
That's a great question. So in my journey is really, as I say, that I desperately needed to career strategize myself back to my passion and my purpose. And I found myself in a career where it kind of found me rather than me actively choosing to find it. And I had achieved a certain level of success in terms of what that industry called for, but I was quite unsatisfied, and I knew that there needed to be something more. So the frogs that I kissed would have been the messiness of transitioning from that and trying to figure out what would it look like for me to then move on to my own entrepreneurial work as a career strategist. And I think the biggest lesson there in how to not kiss too many frogs is to trust in your own intuition and listen to what it is that you know you can do, rather than letting what someone else needs you to do to be the commanding voice. And yeah, it's about trusting your own guidance versus being distracted by shiny offers from other people that come along the way. But that was a great question.
Yeah, really good question. I really like these threads that have run through all of our conversation, this encouragement to trust, to build self-awareness and trust oneself and one's internal experience of where they find energy and a sense of enthusiasm and where they don't. The courage to take action and explore that, knowing that, that passion may lead them to the sweet spot, or it may lead them on a journey where they find something else that actually is a great place for them to be in terms of their career and passion. And also, I think a lot in this, underlying this, is being around people who are also in this space, to be inspired by each other, going after a deeper meaning, an impact that they're trying to create in the world, creating the livelihood that's really a good fit for them. I think it's all really timely given the great resignation and reshuffle that we're experiencing. Well, Licia, it's been amazing having you as a guest on the podcast here. Thank you so much. And I'm sure our audience would love to connect with you and your work. And what would be the best way for them to do that?
Well, it'll be wonderful for them to connect with me on LinkedIn. I love the platform and I think it's so great. And I'm a member of your group there. So if there's any further questions that anyone has, then they need to get onto the group and they can tag me in them and I'd be happy to answer. And I can go into more details about some of the frogs that I kissed along the way.
That sounds perfect. And to our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope that this helps you in the identification of your passion and making sure that your passion is paired with your career, whether that's working within an organization or creating your own business, or maybe a combination of all of the above. Please tune in. We have more coming in terms of passion projects and how to step by step identify and implement a project that will help you connect with your passion that can turn into a career, or can help you identify the company that's great to work for, or help you transfer to that university that's a great fit for you. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and thank you again.
Thank you, Julie. It was a pleasure.